before Romans, before concrete, before the city that would conquer the world. There was mud, there was water, there was a river that didn't care about empires. This is the Thames Valley in the Iron Age. This is London before London existed, and someone like you lived here. We're standing approximately 2,000 years before Christ was born. The year is 100 BCE, give or take a generation. No stone buildings, no roads, no Latin. The people here speak Brythonic Celtic. They're called the Trinovantes, the Catavellauni, tribes whose names we only know because Romans wrote them down centuries later. Population, maybe a few hundred souls scattered across what will one day be called London. Maybe 1,000 during harvest season when the clans gather. They don't call this place anything we'd recognize. There's no city here, just river, just forest, just survival. Here's where it starts, the ford. At low tide, the Thames becomes shallow enough to cross on foot. Wooden stakes mark the route through the mud. Miss the path and you sink to your waist. This ford determines everything. Trade routes, territorial boundaries, where people settle. If you controlled this crossing, you controlled the river valley. Your great-great-great ancestors, going back 80 generations, might have waded through this exact mud, carrying grain or bronze, watching the far bank for rivals. Now we climb Ludgate Hill, high ground overlooking the crossing. This is where you build your fort if you're smart. Earthen ramparts curve along the ridge. Timber palisade, sharpened oak stakes angled outward. A defensive ditch at the base. Inside, round houses, thatched roofs with smoke rising. Maybe 50 people living here. Maybe 200 during conflict. This isn't a village, it's a statement. It says, we see you coming. We're ready. Iron Age Britain was tribal, competitive. Land meant survival. And this hill meant controlling the ford below. If you were born here, you'd wake every morning to the sound of axes, voices, river wind. You'd know every face, every grudge, every alliance. Down from the hill following the water, the Walbrook stream cuts through marshland where it meets the Thames. Reeds, standing pools, willow trees, seasonal camps cluster here. Wattle and daub huts, thatched roofs, smoke from cooking fires. This is where fresh water meets tidal salt. It's perfect for fishing, foraging, freshwater supply. But it floods. Every winter, these huts might be abandoned. Come spring, people return, rebuild, repeat. Life here wasn't permanent. It was rhythmic. It followed the river's moods. You'd spend your mornings checking fish traps, your afternoons weaving baskets, your evenings around fire listening to the same stories your grandparents heard. Not everything was survival. Some things were sacred. Primrose Hill, an oak grove, ancient trees forming a natural circle. Carved wooden totems stand between the trunks. Celtic spirals, animal forms, gods whose names are lost. Votive offerings hang from branches, woven corn dollies, animal skulls, bronze bracelets left as prayers. This is where the tribe gathered for ritual, for sacrifice, for decisions too important for any one chief. The Druids, if they were here, would have known every plant, every star, every ancestor's name going back generations. If you walked into this grove, you'd feel it. The weight, the presence. Your heartbeat would slow. Your voice would drop. Some places demand respect. Cross the river, South Bank. Southwark mudflats at low tide look like another planet. Wooden fish traps create geometric patterns across the exposed mud. Wicker weirs channel the water. 5 roundhouses sit on higher ground just beyond the tidal reach. Smoke rises, nets dry on wooden frames. This is a fishing economy. Dugout canoes pulled up on shore. Coracle boats, circular, leather-covered, light enough to carry on your back. The people here eat fish, eels, waterfowl. They trade smoked fish upriver for grain, bronze, pottery. Life smells like salt, smoke, and river mud. If you were born poor in Iron Age London, this would be your street. This would be your horizon. Back north, higher ground again. Cornhill, a natural gathering point. Open cleared space, temporary woven shelters set up on market days, pottery laid out on animal hides, bronze brooches, iron tools, baskets of grain, bundles of wool, no coins. Everything is barter. A bronze fibula for 2 measures of barley, a woven cloak for an iron knife. You'd hear a dozen accents here, neighboring clans, traveling smiths, maybe traders from Gaul who crossed the channel. Arguments over value, laughter, suspicion. Markets weren't just commerce. They were politics, alliance building, gossip networks. If you wanted to know what was happening in the valley, you came here. Now something stranger. A wooden platform built on oak pilings driven into the Thames shallows. A crannog, an artificial island. One large roundhouse sits on the platform. Whitewashed walls, thatched roof. A narrow walkway connects it to shore. Why build in the water? Defense, status, separation. Maybe a chief lives here. Maybe a holy person. Maybe someone who needs to be close to the river spirits. It's isolated, defensible, symbolic. From the platform, you'd hear water lapping the pilings. You'd feel the structure move slightly with the current. You'd be apart from the tribe but still visible. Power requires distance. Upland, north, Hampstead Heights, dense beech forest. Massive gray trunks rising into a canopy so thick the ground stays bare except for leaf litter. This is where you get timber, firewood, charcoal. A charcoal-making pit sits in a small clearing. Earth mound over smoldering wood. It'll burn slowly for days, turning oak into fuel hot enough to forge iron. The forest provided everything: wood for building, fuel for metalwork, wild game for protein, but it was also dangerous. Bears, wolves, getting lost. If you worked these forests, you'd know every landmark, every seasonal path. You'd carry an axe and move carefully. The forest wasn't scenery, it was resource and threat in equal measure. Down to the river terrace, Chelsea, gravel terraces above the floodline. This is farmable land, 3 small plots. Emmer wheat at different stages, one freshly plowed showing dark soil, one with green shoots, one approaching harvest, golden in afternoon light, a thatched longhouse, a granary on stilts to keep grain dry and away from rodents. This is where civilization starts. Agriculture, surplus, planning beyond the next meal. Farming the Thames terraces meant stability. It meant you could support more people. It meant power, but it also meant you were stuck. You couldn't move seasonally. You had to defend your land. If you were a farmer here, you'd measure your wealth in grain stores, in how many mouths you could feed through winter. The Fleet River Valley, a line in the earth, a deep V-shaped ditch cuts across the meadow. The excavated soil is piled on the far side as a rampart, wooden stakes on top. This is a boundary, a border, a warning. On one side, our clan, our land, our law. On the other side, them. Iron Age Britain was a patchwork of territories. Each valley might belong to a different lineage. Each hill might be contested. This ditch says, we dug this, We'll defend it. If you crossed without permission, you risked violence. Boundaries weren't abstract lines on maps. They were physical, visible, enforced. Greenwich Heights, overlooking the Thames Bend, a grass-covered burial mound, hemispherical, about 60 feet across. 2 standing stones mark the entrance, weathered, ancient even by Iron Age standards. Inside, the bones of ancestors, chiefs, heroes, people whose names became legends before they became dust. The living visited here, left offerings, asked for guidance, felt the presence of the dead. This mound says, we've been here. This land is ours by blood and bone. Your ancestors matter. They watch. They judge. If you stood here at sunset, looking down at the river, you'd understand why they chose this spot. It's not just a grave. It's a claim, a memory, a promise. Back to the river, Blackfriars. A timber quay extends into the current. Oak pilings driven at angles, log platform lashed together, dugout canoes moored alongside, coracle boats, evidence of river traffic. This is infrastructure, early, crude, but intentional. People were moving goods up and down the Thames. Pottery from the coast, metalwork from inland forges, grain, salt. Slaves, probably. The river was a highway. If you wanted to trade beyond your valley, you needed river access. You needed platforms like this. The Thames connected this place to the wider world long before Rome arrived. So here's what we know. Before London was London, it was river crossings and hill forts. It was sacred groves and fishing camps. It was boundaries carved into earth and ancestors buried in mounds. It was people who lived and died without ever knowing their valley would become the center of an empire. They didn't build for posterity. They built for survival. But they built in the right place. When the Romans arrived in 43 CE, more than a century after our timeline, they saw what the tribes had always known. This river, these hills, this crossing, this was the place. Everything that came after, Londinium, medieval London, the modern city, it all started here in the mud, in the marshes, in the minds of people who chose this bend in the river. Your ancestors might have stood exactly where you're standing now. They might have crossed the same ford, climbed the same hill, felt the same river wind. Which ancient city should we time travel to next? Babylon before the walls fell, Athens before democracy, Tenochtitlan before Cortez? Tell me in the comments, and if you've ever walked the Thames path through London, tell me, did you feel it? The weight of everyone who walked there before you? Hit subscribe. History isn't just what happened, it's where it happened, and some places never forget.